What is up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video, and today I'll finally be doing a top 10 movie thing. And today I decided why not go with the MCU. Now these are going to be my personal MCU movies, so a quick disclaimer is that you're allowed to have a completely different list, and that's fine because I've already shown people my list and lots of people find it weird. But this is just my opinion. If you don't like a movie in this list, then it's completely fine. So anyways, I'm going to go with my top 10 list, and I'm going to start it off with Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 to me has always been a really underrated film, and I love seeing this aspect of Tony Stark, being all feared and, scared. And to me, this film is a good 6.5 out of 10. It's a pretty good film. I mean, I think it's a top 10 MCU films. Like I've said, there's a lot of MCU films I criticize, and I think Iron Man 3 is that one movie that I think deserves less criticism, because I think what they were trying to do was great. Now I will criticize the Mandalorian thing, but I did like the whole aspect of Tony trying to go through this PTSD. But yeah. And now my number 9th film. By the way, a quick thing that I gotta mention is that I'm not gonna go too into details with each movie, because this is 10 movies I'm addressing. This is just kind of me, saying which movies I prefer, which ones I don't, all that. Alright, they're just going to be quick reviews. Now, number 9 is Iron Man, the first Iron Man, the first MCU film. I think this film's alright. I love the lesson, seeing how Tony grows as a person. He goes from billionaire playboy philanthropist, which he still is, but he went from having this cocky, arrogant attitude, this not caring, to now wanting to protect people, to save people after all that he has seen. So for me, this film gets a solid 6.8 out of 10, and I think it's a good film. Now, my number 8th film, this one's going to come as a shock, and it is Edward Norton's The Incredible Hulk. And now, every time I see movie list of this, I always see people having it really, really low on their list, like probably bottom 3. I'm going to say Edward Norton's acting in this film was phenomenal. I loved what he brought in, and I still, till this day, believe he is the best Bruce Banner ever put on screen. Yes, I actually believe he is better than Mark Ruffalo's. The only reason why people see Mark Ruffalo as better than Edward Norton is because Mark Ruffalo was in all the Avengers movies. He was in everything. And I feel like after Edward Norton, the only time we ever got to see the real Hulk was with Joss Whedon. Like, as much as I criticize Joss Whedon as a director, I gotta give him props with how he handles Hulk. He makes Hulk look like a threat, and I think he would have handled Edward Norton really well. But Kevin Feige and Edward Norton had a really bad falling out. But the reasons why I love this film, I love the darker tone on him, trying to find the cure to Hulk, and then at the end realizing he can't find a cure, and, adapting to the world around him. He's seen as an atomic bomb. And I think this film is massively underrated. Like, I still enjoy this film. I actually saw it a few days ago so I could make this list. And I think, underrated film, beautiful film, and it deserves more credit. So it's number 8 in my list. Now, number 7th, this is when my list starts getting less surprising. But number 7 is Black Panther. Now, I know I've done a review on this channel saying that I think the film is overrated, and I think there's a lot of flaws in the film, but I still have it in number 7 because I think at the end of the day, Black Panther is still a good film. Now, is it a great film? No. But, I think Black Panther is great. It doesn't really have cinematography, but the visuals in the film are beautiful. I love the whole Wakanda aesthetic that we got. Chadwick Boseman's acting was pretty good. I loved Killmonger, although I didn't like Michael B. Jordan's performance as Killmonger. I did like Killmonger himself. But, Black Panther was a good film, and I gotta give it a 7 out of 10. I think Black Panther and The Incredible Hulk are both tied, so I don't really consider Black Panther 7. I consider 7th and 8th, like, in my list. That's what I see it. And now, number 6, which will come as a bit of a surprise to some of y'all, but it's Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, if you know me close personally, I don't like this Tom Holland Spider-Man. I think there could be massive improvements to the film, or to the character. But I think Homecoming was a pretty good film. I loved Vulture as the antagonist. I did love the story arc of Peter, accepting he doesn't have to be the next Iron Man. He has to be his own Spider-Man. Of course, Far From Home ruins that, and Far From Home is not on this list. But I think Homecoming was a good start to Spider-Man's MCU journey, although Far From Home completely destroyed that. But let's move on to the list, and this is finally my top 5. Oh yeah, I forgot to make the score. Spider-Man Homecoming for me gets a 7.4 out of 10. I think it's a good film. Not the best, of course, but I'm going to give it a 7.2 out of 10, actually. A little less on the score. But now let's get into my 5th film, and that is Doctor Strange. And I think this movie is the most underrated MCU movie. I think the film is really well made, and I think the visuals in the film were the best we ever got in an MCU film. Seeing this whole, Dormammu world, the whole different worlds, the different realities. And I love seeing how he goes from, this doctor who only wants to make sure that life is saved, to then being this sorcerer who wants to protect life at all cost. And I see this film as the most underrated MCU film. I know a lot of people have debates saying, Ant-Man is the most underrated. Honestly, Ant-Man's a very overrated film, both of them, Ant-Man the Wasp and Ant-Man. But I think it's Doctor Strange that's the most underrated film. It's beautifully well shot. And, I want to make a solo video for Doctor Strange where I just talk about that film itself. But, right now I'm just doing, scores real quick. So my final score for Doctor Strange will be a 7.5 out of 10. Pretty good film. Some of the humor in the movie doesn't land that much. And Caecilius as a villain does get a bit generic and boring. But, let's move on to the list. And now to my top 4. And my 4th film is Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok for me is probably the funnest MCU movie, or second funnest movie in the MCU. And I think it's a pretty good film. Thor having to save Asgard, but he's sent to another planet, and then he meets like Hulk. And I think this film, the thing I like most about it is how creative Taika Waititi was making this script. I do think he had the cast and everyone had a ton of fun, and I'm pretty sure Chris Hemsworth, if Thor Ragnarok hadn't been this fun, his contract just ended a year ago. Pretty sure the only reason why he renewed his contract was because of Thor Ragnarok. If that movie had been similar to Thor the Dark World, or Thor, or maybe even the first few Avengers movies, I'm pretty sure Chris Hemsworth would have been out and we would have seen him as a flop. But Thor Ragnarok is the film that saved his reputation as Thor. And I think, Thor Ragnarok is a pretty good film, pretty fun. Hela was a pretty decent villain, not that great, but that's not really the main thing. I love the side characters. I love the whole journey. And the ending of the film, I think, was the one that makes most sense. But, alright, let's move on to the list. And now, finally, to our top 3. And I think it comes to no surprise that this one's in my top 3. But number 3 is Infinity War. Infinity War, for me, is the best Avengers movie there is. And I think, this movie had so much pressure on it because it had to handle every single character in the MCU, a lot. So you got Guardians of the Galaxy, you got Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Iron Man, the Avengers, everything. And I think this film had the most difficult job in trying to do that. And I think the Russo brothers did really well bringing them and not feeling it forced. And the best thing about the film is actually Thanos. Thanos, it was his film. Thanos is the protagonist of Infinity War. If you know anything about stories and how they work, then you'd see it's Thanos' journey. This isn't Iron Man's. This isn't Thor's. This is a Thanos solo movie in a way. Well, not really solo, but it's a Thanos movie. He is the protagonist, and I love Thanos in this film. And this film, for me, gets easily an 8 out of 10. It's a pretty great film. There are some times, I think this movie handles comedy the best, and it doesn't make it feel forced. And the only criticism I really have is we didn't get enough of some of the characters, but it's completely fair. I see why we didn't get too much of Captain America, Black Widow, and But anyways, now my top 2 films in this list. Number 2, The Winter Soldier. Now, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, for me, used to be number 1 in the MCU for a long time. But I'm about to say who's my number 1, but Winter Soldier is a really well-made film. Captain America adjusting to this new world. I personally hated the first Captain America film, the first Avenger. I didn't like it. It was Red Skull was a boring villain. The whole story and plot was just boring. And I mean, we had a film like Wonder Woman be able to do this way better than Captain America. And I think that first film that's why it's not even in my top 10. But Winter Soldier itself, I think it fixes that. It has this Captain America in a modern world trying to adapt. And I loved the Winter Soldier. Bucky as the main villain, it gives more personal stakes. And I think Winter Soldier has been one of the best villains in MCU. Although Bucky, after Winter Soldier, he just looked weak. Civil War, he was just completely beaten by Iron Man. And then in Infinity War, it just looked like all he could do was shoot with a gun. And then Endgame, don't even think we had a single action scene. And I feel like we need more Bucky. Although we are going to get a series called Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So stay tuned for that, of course, in Disney+. Don't know when it's coming out, but it will be coming out soon. And then finally, we've made it to this level. And now it's my number 1 movie. And I actually made a review on this channel saying it's my favorite MCU movie of all time. And I've already said it. But I deleted that video, so some of y'all might not know. But my number 1 MCU movie is Guardians of the Galaxy. The first one, of course. And I think this film, to me, is a 9 out of 10. A solid 9 out of 10. It's almost at the 10. For me, it's the best MCU movie because of the characters' connections, the chemistry. Everyone really felt like a band of misfits, all teaming up. And I think the soundtrack in this film really complements it. It matches, unlike Suicide Squad where you just had random songs played. And, in this film, the 80s music and the story itself. I love Star-Lord's story of finally, redemption, finally finding that family that he so wanted. And, the only problem I probably have with this film is, the villain, Ronan the Accuser. He was very boring, bland, and generic, but he doesn't take away anything from the characters. And I think Guardians of the Galaxy is the best MCU movie, without a doubt. I used to think it was Winter Soldier, and so I decided to watch Guardians of the Galaxy again. And then, now, Guardians of the Galaxy, for me, is the only MCU film being. Now, I'm done with my top 10 list. Let me address a few things. There are 2 movies that you're probably wondering why aren't they on the list to me. And that is Captain America Civil War and Avengers Endgame. To me, Avengers Endgame could have been way better. This is movie-wise. I'm not saying character-wise. Because a lot of people tend to like Endgame because they saw Black Panther teaming up with Spider-Man. I judge a movie based on how the movie is. To me, Endgame was a average film. Not a bad film, but it's average. And I think could have been done way better. Although I still enjoyed the experience of hyping it up for an entire year. And Civil War, a lot of people have Civil War in their top 5. Me personally, I don't like Civil War that much. I think Civil War could have been done way better. And, it fell off. But, that's going to be it for my review. For my top 10 MCU movies. And, like I said, not everyone's going to have the same opinion as I do. Of course, films are subjective. So you could have a different list. Like, for example, a lot of you probably won't have The Incredible Hulk in y'all's list because, personally, I've never met anyone that's enjoyed that film. I personally enjoy it a lot. And that's actually the main reason why I wanted to make a list. Because, I think that film deserves more credit. And give it credit when credit's due. And, alright, before I let you guys go, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Because I always talk about film. If you love film, then make sure you subscribe. Because I upload daily film talk content. And also make sure to like and comment on this video. Comment down below your top 10 list. And if you don't have really a top 10 list, maybe a top 5. Or just tell me your favorite MCU movie. Until next time. Peace.